How about some more having to do with information in a real wide sense of it, the way it is now becoming part of the system of man himself, that all information, but specifically that which purports to specifically offer some sort of intelligence expansion. In other words, not just directions on how to refinish the dining room table, but the kind of information all the way from religions to philosophy to self-help, psychology, that specifically says that the information, that its system, the deliverance of the system, the people involved with the system, all of it, that the purpose is to intellectually expand those who might avail themselves of it. They all, perforce, of our 3D universe, end up doing one thing, and that's simply pushing a new local reality. On the playing field, on the level playing field of the 3D world, being held down by ordinary gravity, it is impossible for any system that springs up on the playing field, that is, it's just natural and native and not extraordinary to the human experience. They cannot in any way offer plurality. Under all ordinary spatial conditions, what they must do, if they're going to become vital, if they're going to become used by life, is they have to claim that their new, and it may just be an alteration of course, but their new system of beliefs, their new package of information is the only valid one. There has to be this claim of exclusivity. There must be, or it will not survive. It'd be no more than a duck quacking is right at the winter equinox, that you would hear it one time and that'd be it. You'd never hear from it again. But if this system, if this school of thought, and take the whole range, fill in, if I don't hit them, all sorts of holes there, religion, psychology, self-help, mystical, pseudo-mystical, anti-mystical, anything that purports to offer information. And the information is always a part of some sort of systematic presentation. If it's no more than the person offering the information is the spokesman for the secret information, that becomes the system, because you cannot separate the delivery, the hardware from the software. You cannot just any longer, as though you ever could, but you cannot even on the surface of it now separate the anchor person from the news. You cannot separate the messenger from the news. So if you're going to hear about it a second time, if there's an announcement that here is a new system, here is a new package of information, if you're going to hear that repeated for a second time, that is, if it doesn't quack once and disappear, if it quacks twice, then it has to be claiming, and it has to be working to some degree, it has to be claiming exclusivity, that the information that it is offering is going to present a new mode of reality that now is the only valid one, that it does away with all previous ones. Thus you have, if you can begin to see it before we're through tonight, you have what amounts to the shortfall of all information on this planet. You have the operational shortfall from a more complex view of all religions, all philosophies, all hard and soft scientific attempts to deal with human behavior. They all come up short because they all must claim, and they may not use the words, but you should be able to hear now what's going on energy-wise behind just the first band that comes through with a parade. Is behind it is the parade itself, the full energy, and whatever brought the parade into fruition, whatever the purpose And behind whatever they say is the claim that this new information system offers the only valid template or mode or description of reality. That it is now up to date, in some way revealed, figured out, but it is the only valid one. That everything else, to varying degrees, is flawed. And that if you want to get in on the team, if you want to get in on the ground floor, if you want to be really a part of this new, breathtaking, astounding information system, then you have got to realize the exclusivity of it, that it is offering a singular mode. It is the only truly valid one. Others may have, if they're pushed, they may have bits and pieces of some scattered partial validity. But insofar as you adopting, insofar as a person attempting to live by a complete system, living by a package of information, if you're going to do it correctly, you have got to adopt theirs. You just simply got to see it. Because anything less than that, you're going to be dealing with less than a full picture of reality. The claims are continually made. They even get specific in terms that are fairly contemporary, that they will say that the purpose of the information, the purpose of the system, it can be either way now. You should begin to see that there is a dance going on nowadays between apparently the information and the system that apparently is going to convey it. They're now dancing to such a degree that you cannot even intellectually, you cannot even verbally, with any profit, separate the two. But they may be still discussing, advertising, presenting it as either information itself, that the information is of some great importance. You need to know this secret, or this new data describing the human existence, or they may present it as a complete package that it cannot be separated from the delivery system, that the information and the delivery system are one, but it makes no difference. They will even specifically announce, for those of you having doubt, you realize this does not have to actually be an overt external occurrence. That is, you may have never run across this yet occurring. And for that matter, it may not have occurred apparently out there, but it has occurred in the collective nervous system of man. For those of you that keep thinking, what's he talking about? You know, if you're trying to put together the Catholic Church or Scientology or the Illuminati or the 86 Mets, they will specifically nowadays say such things as the information and or the system is meant to widen man's intellect. And it's not possible, because what they will end up having to do is again deal with that most common, that hoary, not spelled with a WH, old premise that their mode, the presentation, is the only valid one. And so thus, even though they say this information is new, this information is expansive, it will widen your intellectual horizons, it will do no such thing. All it will do is narrow them anew. It has to. You cannot have a widening if you're having a claim of exclusivity to a mode of reality. There can be no plurality. They can say, here it is, finally a system. I'll repeat one more time for some of you looking weird, and especially out there on tape. If you can't think of this actually happening out in life, you don't know, you can't think of an example, the example is in the nervous system already. You cannot claim that the base of your operations defines presently the one valid mode of reality. You cannot do that and then make any claims for widening the intellect of those who pursue this. Do you not see that? We're back to an example that I started hitting on of a situation last time we were taping. is this can sound fine if you only go so far as the first stage, the first story, when it makes sense. But if you go one step further, 1 inch further, 1 second further, it makes no sense. It will turn on itself. And so a new system can say, here it is. Let me just make an example. Let us say that it seemed to be religiously based, which is, most people find this the easiest to take as an example. If suddenly somebody jumped out, or some group, and said, we have the new religion. We have the religion of the 21st century. We have a religion based upon food for the intellect. And what it is, we're not attacking the past religions, but they're simply outdated. We have outgrown them, and so this religion is not really Neo-Catholicism. It's not Judaism revisited. It's none of that. It takes them all in and then puts the finishing touches on all religious and spiritual ideas, notions of the past with the new information we have. And thus, it overwhelms, it transcends all past religions. Not individually, but all of them. Now, on the surface, that sounds as though that would truly be an offering of plurality of information. That they are saying that our religion, this new religion, let's say they call it the 21st century religion, this religion does not naysay any past religion. They were all as correct as they could be. One was not superior to the other, but they were all lacking. They all were outstripped by the evolutionary growth of man's intellect. So what it was demanded was a new religion. And that's what this is, but it does not deny past truths. It simply shows, if you follow us, it simply shows where they were lacking. So that would sound as though, wait a minute, here is a plurality inherent in an information system. Because they're saying that everybody was all right to start with back then. That simply the needs of man's intellect has outgrown them all. And so we're not saying that they were wrong. They were simply not sufficiently pregnant with contemporary information. So it would sound as though, all right, you could come into it being a Muslim or a Christian and still bring in your background, and it doesn't say, boy, it's a good thing you found us, or you would have just, withered away. It doesn't say that. It's offering a plurality that embraces everything, right? Now that makes sense if you stop there. That's a fine explanation. That is a presentation that will fly in the 3D world. Of course, those of you who hadn't noticed, everything will fly in the 3D world. Rocks will fly. Buildings will fly. You just can't be concerned about the temporal aspect, about how long. But everything will fly. Once you go past that point, though, do I have to make it that much cruder? Even this system is saying that now it's the only valid one. There is no room for plurality. It is not a new system. It is not a widening of the horizons if you take it past the first story, the place where it makes first sense to a three-dimensionally limed mind. That, well, I like that. That's my kind of religion. I'm not religious, but by God, if I was going to be, that's it. They might even call themselves the universal 21st century religion. And their motto could be, we ain't mad at nobody. And so you could think, boy, that's my kind of religion finally. It's just big enough to take in all of mankind. It will absorb anything. Good. Except stop there at the period and now put in a comma. Will it absorb this? Will it tolerate this? A voice that says, this is hogwash. This is fig pits. You guys are nuts. Will it absorb that? Will it absorb, rather than just apparently head-on confrontation, will it absorb this? Some voices say, that's interesting, but we started that ourselves. We've got our own version of it. We just didn't patent or copyright the name locally, but we've been doing that for several years. You people, I don't know how, but you stole that from us. And we may sue, or at least we're going to call attention to the fact that you guys, it's not all that new. You took a bunch of that from us. Will it absorb that? Or will it absorb, if I may get even more subtle, will it absorb some voices say, we have listened to your claim for this new belief system, this new information system, and we find great favor with it. Almost in toto. But you're lacking in just one or two places. And you're obviously, for whatever reason, right now you're sort of blinded to it. No offense, but you're probably carried away with the enthusiasm of how close you are to it. And the reason we know is we got the little missing pieces to straighten your system out. Will it absorb that? Not because of some sort of bullheadedness, not because of simple matters of ego, as they call it in the 3D world. It simply cannot. The system will not survive unless it has a claim. Life cannot even use it, will not tolerate it, unless it has a claim of exclusivity on staking out what is now the proper definitions, the proper defining of reality. And there can't be two of those, not in the 3D world. Not from the view, of course, of those involved. I'm not saying that something resembling this, if you could see in a more complex manner, it does not take place, because everything can take place even simultaneously when you don't think that time is simultaneous. But from the view of those involved, it cannot absorb, it cannot tolerate, once it announces that, all right, this is it, this is up to date, here is the system, here is the new package of information that takes everything into account. Even the past flaws of systems similar to this. Maybe the leader says, my grandfather, a lot of you followed his system, it wasn't bad. And I'm not picking on the old man, but it had certain holes, certain blank areas, and now I fill them in. Now the information is up to date. What it is saying is, this is the exclusive schematic mode of reality. It has to say that, whether it says that verbally or not. And if it says that, there is no way that it is widening, adding to man's intellect. It is narrowing it again. At best, if you're following this, the 3D world, it can be this sort of almost instantaneous slap shot of a hockey puck to your head, without you realizing, of saying, here is the brand new expanded, all-encompassing system, up-to-date information package, and you go, yeah, for a split second, but then immediately after that is, and if you don't believe that, you're wrong. There are no exceptions to this. The system cannot tolerate any questioning as to its exclusive validity. And that's it. It cannot tolerate the system itself, not the people. Don't get involved with what I'm describing. Don't get involved with the people in there have their own axe to grind and they couldn't stay popular or they couldn't drag in the money. That's not it. The system, the way in which life is using energy, and it pops out as being information systems, belief systems, being a kind of systematic delivery of information that seems to have some specific claim to the attention, to the intellectual growth or possibility of humanity. They are all, whether they say it outright or not, must be based upon the claim, tacit or otherwise, that this is the exclusive, up-to-date mode of reality. It cannot tolerate anything, or life wouldn't be using it. It would not be a system. But I repeat again, since most of you seem to have shown no great interest, once you get that for a second, then I'll repeat again, thus the forever shortfall of all belief in information systems. Because if the more they claim that this is it, this takes into account everything, the more they claim that, the less it's true. The wider they say their intellectual horizons are, the narrower they will make those who follow it become. I'll try another way of looking at it. Well, let's get scientific. Funny scientific, of course. And it would go like this. You cannot twist or interpret any discipline, any system of thought so as to reach any conclusion that is contrary to the linear laws of the system itself without destroying the system. Let's see if I can shorten that. No? I know you were hoping, I was hoping. And I got in the middle of coming up with this law. I was hoping, well, the shorter the better. But I need to cover the whole ground there. You cannot twist, you cannot interpret any sort of discipline, any school of thought, any information system, and all possible examples that would fit under that, so as to reach any conclusion that would be contrary to the ordinary laws of the system without destroying the system. A predictable rhetorical question, thusly, can you see what that might portend? Can you see the possible ramifications of that? That once you are part of a system, and I know it sounds like maybe some of you people are just beginning to see this on tape sometime, that may sound as though we're talking about going out and joining up with some new cult or some new intellectual self-help group. That would be the primitive example, which is all right to start with. But consider whole segments of life's body itself, and parts of it flowing through man, so that there is a system of some kind. And the system could apparently be a new wave of cultural activity in one part of life's body, that is, one part of this planet, one part of humanity. It could be apparently a new political flow. It could be all sorts of things, an attempted new religion, etc. And you find yourself in the midst of it. You find yourself in a certain place where this kind of new way of thinking begins to take hold, begins to sweep through your particular state, place where you seem to be living in life's body. You didn't join, you're just there. Seems to be a new wave of political conservatism. Seems to be anything. Think of any example. The examples do not matter, as primitive as they are, unless you're going to remain real primitive. And then even kindergartners need something to do, I know, but you can find that kind of distraction somewhere else. Take it past the example right quick. Once you're there inside of a system, and you're inside of some system, it is not possible for anyone to reinterpret the system, to analyze it, and then to come up with a new variation of it in any way that's going to come to conclusions that are contrary to the laws of the system. And when I say the laws of the system, I mean in the widest sense, the premise of the system. If you're going to come up with some conclusion that now runs contrary to the premise of the system, you will destroy the system. Now, you may not destroy it, but what's happened, you have destroyed your participation in it. That is, you try and come up with a new interpretation. All right, I'll get crude. Too many of you are looking weird. If you were inside the Catholic Church, Baptist Church, if you were a Protestant, doesn't matter, and you began to try, for whatever reasons, it just seemed to happen to you, that you did not blanketly reject and abandon your religion, but you decided, something flowed through you, that you decide that your area of Protestant belief, this whole system, was sorely lacking or had been misconstrued based upon your own interpretations of your own Vedi Mecum, and you read it and you come up with ideas that reach conclusions that seem satisfying to you, but the conclusions run contrary to what are the accepted tenets, that is, the laws, the original premise of that religion. And you come up with a conclusion, you say, well, the Catholic Church. You come up with conclusions that the Pope is not infallible, even in some figurative way, or even literally when he is in some way speaking, whatever they call it, for the Church, or that the Virgin Mary was not a virgin. That you come up with conclusions, and therefore that led you to say, well, now I have a new interpretation of Catholicism. Now I feel better. Now I can stay with the Church, or at least I can stay with this belief system. That is, I can think about it and find favor with it. But the conclusions, that was not attempted quick dissertation on theology, but your conclusions come up in a way that run absolutely contrary to the premise of the belief system. If you do that, you have destroyed the system. Now, you doing that didn't destroy the Catholic Church, but by you doing that, you have destroyed your participation in, not the Catholic Church necessarily, not overtly, but this connection to that belief system. That does not mean that you know it, but it cannot be done. You destroy the system if you come to conclusions, if you interpret, if you twist the belief system in such a way that you have conclusions that are absolutely contrary to the premises of the system, which happens all the time. This is not an attack on it. This is part of the growth of life. This is why you have, in Judaism, for instance, easiest example, the Orthodox and the Reform and the Liberal, that you can see, one, if you know anything about it, you can see in political parties changing names, or the same party changing names because it seems to flow from the right to the left and then back to the right 50 years later, is this kind of expansion from within wherein their life makes certain people become sort of acne inside the system. Well, they begin to reinterpret, they begin to take the energy of the system, whether it be Judaism or the Republican Party or the Whigs, and certain groups inside the system itself began to come to conclusions. They call them reinterpretations, or oftentimes they'll say it's to take us back to the original premise of our religion or of our system. The point is they come up with conclusions without realizing it in this sense that are absolutely contrary to the premise of the system. And when they do so, they have destroyed the system within that is their connection to it. And it may turn out to be a new growth. It may supersede and take over the old system, or it may become a splinter. It may become the liberal arm as opposed to the orthodox arm. They may exist coevally, or one may finally disappear, and it goes on and on and on. But there is something to be gained, or I wouldn't bring this up. It's not any kind of history lesson. I don't think we can think that for a second, can we? It happens in you. It happens to people as mechanically as them shedding their skin throughout their life and never noticing it. Of every, whatever it is, 15 months that your whole body is anew, at least at some level, cellularly. This happens to people, but they do not realize it. And therefore you can't use the energy. And plus, therefore, you stay oftentimes with your vision narrowed, your intelligence narrowed, wherein you were expecting and claim to have gone into some activity that widened your vision. But it was simply a new version of local reality. Because if you accepted, if you're ordinary, that I have found this new book, I have found this new way of thinking, and it can be simply a book, because again, I repeat, we're not talking about the system itself like you destroying the Catholic Church if you come up with conclusions that are contrary to the basic tenets of the Church. It's obvious you didn't destroy the Church, you destroyed your swimming in that Catholic pool. You destroyed your prior connection to it. You could do it with a book. That, boy, now I found it. And you accept it as being presently the exclusive mode of reality, description of reality. And it's not true. It doesn't matter in the 3D world. People continue to be disappointed. They don't use that word. And disappointment's nothing. Disappointment's a form of energy conversion. But it happens, why I'm saying for you people that it is useful, it is very, to varying degrees, it is very salient in everyone's life up to the point that they realize that it's not. But that you apparently keep going through a process of cocoonizing, that you are some sort of, not butterfly, you're kind of a dreary backstage moth, but then you found a certain book, then you find a certain group, but you had to sort of plunge back in and become a neophyte all over. You had to become a little grub. And then finally, the system says, now you're okay, and as you blossomed out anew, like, well, now I'm finally a butterfly. And then a little while later, you look in the mirror, and there doesn't seem to be that much change. You thought it was a lot brighter, and you thought you could fly better. It is not a widening of horizons. It is not an adding to of the intellect of man. Not at the ordinary level. It's not possible. Or there would be no new system of thought, or of belief, as they used to call it. Some still do. Because they must claim exclusivity, and to claim that narrows the view. Because it can say for a second, wait a minute, here's the brand new view, we'll take you away from the old view, which was getting old and boring and limited. Yeah. Look over here, we take that in plus the new stuff. So it's got to be wider because it absorbs what you're already tired of, plus it adds what was missing, the new stuff. Yeah, so you turn around and it's got to be wider, right? Because it has to narrow it back to the claim of exclusivity. There can be no plurality of possibilities, of thought, of information, of ideas. You cannot, back to this one for a second, you cannot in any way interpret personally. You cannot analyze, you cannot think about, you cannot ponder, you cannot twist the information within some information system in such a way to come up with conclusions that are contrary to the premises and the laws of the system without destroying the system. Exception. This kind of activity. But also note, there can never be any sort of this kind of system. And anytime you think they are, you have wandered off back into the minefield. No matter what you think. No matter what you think you may have picked up here or from me or... The only exception, if it were not an exception, it wouldn't be this. It can make no claim for exclusivity. And of course, I don't mean that I just not going to do it. If you let it happen to you that, well, yes, this is it. Thank God I finally found it. Yeah, maybe, yeah. And of course, you know what you're saying, then I would silently go, yeah. And we could smile. But it's not an exclusive claim to validity on this planet because there is none. Yeah. And you would understand that. That this makes no claim of exclusive validity. This would be the one exception. It absorbs all exclusive claims of validity and then kind of burps or looks off because that's nothing. But see, this continues to be replayed at the ordinary level. As I said, if you didn't follow it, there's nothing new, some group somewhere popping up. That is, some new system of thought or a belief pops up somewhere and says, we are now the universal. We're the universal religion or philosophy. We take in everything. I think the last, of course, major one that was attempted on this planet was started by Brother Dave Garner before his liver exploded. It's obscure humor, never mind. But it's not all that funny, obscure philosophy. All right, obscure funny philosophy. Throughout history, there have been new systems that popped up that says, we absorb it all. We are finally here. The God sent us, is what they used to say, of course, to say that all previous beliefs are now superseded, but not that they were wrong. No matter what your color, your creed, your belief system in the past was, you're welcome here because this is it. This is the final system. They all say that, which is just a more polite way or a distracting way of saying we are the exclusive system. But saying we're the final ones. Abraham said it, then Confucius, then Moses, then who else? Then Jesus, then Muhammad, then Brother Dave Garner. Here it is, we are the exclusive, this is the final word. This is the only exception to what I'm saying. At the 3D level, this is the final word, but it can't say that. Because to say you're the final word means that everything you're absorbing has some significance. And it doesn't. It's just a piece of something. So this would be the only exception, that it could truly absorb everything on this planet and always has. But then after that, the real comment, if there was one, would be, well, so what? But everybody else, every time a system comes on, it says we are the all-embracing. We are the mother load, come home to mama system. We'll absorb everything. That is, we're exclusive. But they do it on the basis that we're talking about that everything here is now wrapped up and that's it. And we're the final word. Whereas if this did that, which this is kind of doing that, but it doesn't say that. This kind of activity does that, but it's not on the basis of any importance. It's like the first time of going to school in kindergarten, and the teacher says, don't wet your pants in school, and you go, okay, and that's it. That's the importance of that. They say, don't spit in other people's shoes. That's all that amounts to. And so this would be the exclusive. That is, this would absorb it all, but as far as that being exclusive and having some importance, that's nothing. Because we're talking about incomplete information. If you took all the information ever present on this planet, all of it right now, and I could condense it and cram it in your brain, and you were actually involved and knew what this was about, and I did it, and I said, this is it. That you could now make the up-to-date valid claim that you now know the full, can describe, or the living example, the full mode of reality. You would suddenly realize, so what? That's nothing. That would be like me saying, hey, don't come in here and spit in the floor. You go, okay. That's all that amounts to. But since this would be the exception, if you could describe it being an exception when you'd have to go around the corner from the 3D world, you'd have to be more complex. Still understand that's why there can be no revolutionary, that is, this kind of thing systematized. It simply cannot be. It pops up here and there through history, and this is almost gossip, but I know some of you are interested or have gotten tangled in the past, and your memories may still be trailed with it somewhere. This kind of stuff pops up all the time. Little life does it like a pimple. And then it will turn into a system, though. If you've ever heard of it. And of course, if you've ever heard of it, forget it. Because it turned into a claim of exclusivity. You might note any system, if it was one in the past, which seems to be more sacred, and the small s sacred, seems to be possibly more important. Past systems. Any of them that in any way claim exclusivity, always remember this. They're at least as primitive as yours already. No matter how they're dressed up, no matter how they appear to glow in the looking backwards into history, or in your imagination of what's going on in the secret caves in Tibet that are thousands and thousands of feet, and their whole cities built down there, and these old men, and perhaps some old women, walking around in certain kind of holy poses. I'm sure you have seen you've seen enough in movies to know what to expect. And they've got all this secret information, and they know what's going on. You just know it. And you know that they have got it exclusively. That's why you won't get there. You can make a note of this. This is another cosmic law of physics, not religion or weirdness. That any system claiming exclusivity, which if you've ever heard the system, it is claiming exclusivity. So that's the trick in the beginning of the question, or the statement, the law. But any system claiming to be the one valid, the all-encompassing valid mode and description of reality, I'm telling you a fact. You can bank on it. They are at least, I'm being big-hearted as is my wont, they are at least as primitive and simplistic as you are now, as your present system. Bank on it. Don't even worry about it. Don't check the papers. Don't call your broker. Bank on it. So thus, this can never be systematized. And of course, conversely, whenever it is, forget it. And not just out there, anytime you find it has now coalesced, come together, finally begin to make lineal sense, that you now begin to get a grasp of the full picture of this. That is, it's becoming systematized in you. Don't worry about looking out there. You now have just simply a new, narrow, local reality in you that's just as primitive now, at least as primitive, as the one you thought it replaced. In other words, your new information, that now you're less ignorant than you were because of this new information.
Yeah.
No, you're at least as ignorant as you were before.
Yeah.
At least. At least. You can look at it, if you want to, another way, that only information that has no premise, only data that is freed from seriatim systematics holds any hope. Is there such information? Well, think about it. Do I have to repeat that whole damn sentence? It would only be information that had no premise. Think about that a second. Maybe I went too fast. It had to be information with no premise. It would have to be data freed from all seriatim, sequential, systemization, or else it holds no promise, offers no hope, contains, harbors no alternative information. It's that simple. Pardon me. How about another view? Don't like to always make it all hard and academic sounding. Let's go into something everybody enjoys, economics. Oh, I was going to say that at the spatial present, which is another time, in case you people don't know, it doesn't have anything to do with Pacific or Greenwich. Spatially present is what most people think of as being in the 3D world. But at any rate, at the spatial present on this planet, in this part of the universe, contrary to what it seems to be, not that they're wrong, because if you stop where the mind wants you to stop now, they are correct, you and everyone else. But remember, we're trying to take it past that period, past the first satisfying explanation, at least past the first logical, reasonable explanation. So, at the spatially present, man's intellect is not operating in a free marketplace. And yet everything in life that flows through man's intellect says otherwise. But the intellect as it is now, the condition is not one of a free marketplace of ideas and possibilities. And what it is something else I know a lot of you used to like to hear about. What it is, it's not just a free market. And don't worry about the political constraints that people living in Albania can't stand up and say, you know, stuff the premier. It's not that. It's in the privacy of your own brain. Take it down to a worthwhile area. Don't worry about the political conditions, although it manifests itself out there. But in here, this is not a free market. And yet it says it is. It is not a free market of ideas and possibilities of information. Not only is it not that, but the little area I thought to push it a little bit further that some of you might like, what's going on is a shared monopoly. It is a shared monopoly. It's based on a kind of collusion and conspiracy. But it is a shared monopoly, not a free marketplace. And the shared monopoly is just that which naturally, or that which continually arises between the two organic components that always occurs in all perceived fissions. Let me try to simplify it. It's not all that bad. There is a conspiracy It's not anywhere you can find, of course, for you people out on tape. That's why sometimes I like to bring it up, because everybody loves the idea, which I've gone into and used as examples many tapes ago, if you ever want to look them up. But I'll go to this far, that everybody believes in conspiracies of some kind, and most general way I could tell you to look at it is this. Of course, many people, specifically based on local reality, believe there is an international monetary conspiracy. And then there are those who believe there's an international religious conspiracy. You know, something to do with the Holy Grail maybe, or the Templars, or then people who believe there's an ancient conspiracy going on having to do with politics. That there are too many of the same families keep popping up, and they keep taking over parts of the world and ruling the world. Something funny. All right. Everybody believes in some kind of conspiracy, whether you go around and with an idée fixe about it or not, you'll hear about it, and everybody responds to the idea of, huh. And that would answer some things, if not a lot of things. I was just going to say the basis, the simplest basis of the conspiracy is this, the belief in conspiracies, is that all humans again, we're left with an area with no great words. I'll say know or suspect. They cannot verbalize it, and it serves no useful intellectual purpose. But everybody strongly suspects that there's more to what's going on than they're aware of. And hence, it's not even much of a jump. It's just barely raise yourself up for somebody to say, did you ever wonder why the poor stay poor and the same people keep getting rich? If it was like the monetary conspiracy. And you go, well, yeah. And of course you did, yeah, that you're tired of being poor, and you've always been poor, and your family's always been poor, and your grandfather. And they say, well, you think that you can go out and get a job and hire out your skills out in the free marketplace and get, you offer your skills, and somebody says, we'll pay X amount an hour, and you say no. You have to raise it by at least 10%. If they say no, you say, all right, and you go somewhere else. Did you ever think that that's just kind of an illusion, that behind the scenes is a handful of people that are pulling all the strings of the economy? And so it's just one small, and you could do it with politics, you could do it with religion, you could do it with a social strata of life, because everyone, non-verbally, all humans know, even the smartest, even the most intelligent on the planet of ordinary people, everyone suspects, knows that there's more going on here than even I realize. So, there is the ultimate basis of conspiracy belief. But back to my kind of more hardwired everyday example. In the intellect itself, there is one of the greatest conspiracies going on. And it's not run by other people. It's not tied to and limited to economics, etc. It's the world of ideas, the world of information, the actual operations chemically of the human brain, and there is a collusion, there is a conspiracy, and it arises naturally. Whereas this thing says that within the given limitations of my education and my experience, I can entertain all sorts of ideas. This is a free marketplace. It is not. And it thinks it is. But everybody's nervous system, everybody's brain is in the grip of the most astounding collusion. It is under the absolute sway of the greatest conspiracy you could imagine. And the conspiracy is that which arises organically from the two natural components always occurring from any perception of fission. Come on, it's not that hard. If you think it is, there's the example. And if you think, well, that's not hard at all, there it is. There is no free marketplace of ideas and information. Don't worry about out there, because I know if you get hung up out there, you can think, well, certain areas of the planet have tighter censorship over the press and over education, and so yes, it could be more or less. In here, there is no free marketplace. There is a shared monopoly All right, things should either be true or false. I mean, any particular idea, right? That sounds as though you got at least a free marketplace there that, well, all right, I can decide if something's true or false. Take true and false now as being two actual entities. Don't worry about the Rothschilds or the Knights of Columbus or the Knights of Malta or Tibetan monks. Don't worry about them running the collusion. Think about this. Truth and error, true and false, take them now as being actual entities, which is a natural basic fission, which is the only way the human intellect works at the 3D level, that everything has got to either be true or false, or else there would be no reason to even use the intellect. There'd be no reason to try and educate yourself, to think. There's got to be a natural division, which is a fission, arising from every fission. Every time something splits, you know this even, it turns into two parts, which is what fission is. From that would arise naturally, organically, inescapably, two components. In this case, let's take truth and false. True and false. And you would think, well, there is a wide, encompassing example of the free marketplace of ideas that I and everyone else can look into, can study, can compare the truth from that which is false. It is a conspiracy. It's an organic conspiracy because there are not two components. It is a shared monopoly. It would be like a Rockefeller at one time starting Standard Oil. And it starts to get out of hand. It becomes Standard Oil of Indiana and Ohio and Pennsylvania and however it all worked. And then the government began to question. So they split it up, and he only has Standard Oil of Ohio. And it turns out that his son-in-law is now the major stockholder of this new corporation, Standard Oil of Pennsylvania. Now, if we're talking about the external world, and the point's not the Rockefellers of the external world, I'm just trying to get something that some of you people might stick your teeth into the hamburger helper again of your brain. Do you understand what a shared monopoly is? They can apparently be competitors. They're fixing the prices. They can send out press releases, and one of the family attacking the other one for unsavory business practices, for trying to gouge the public with their prices when they're in collusion. It's only the appearance of competition. It's only the appearance of a free marketplace. It's two people running, two forces running the marketplace of oil, let's say, for this example right quick. But they're apparently competitors. But it's a shared monopoly. It is a conspiracy. Now forget all that. Back to what I was telling you. Take away a Rockefeller and a son-in-law apparently being competitors. Now look at what would be the real competition. Something important. The competition between true information and false information. Because we're not money grubbers, as obviously as us. We're way beyond that. We're interested in the world of ideas. Not the world of lucre. The world of ideas, you've got important matters, not just profit and loss. Never mind that, or whether the bottom line is up or down this quarter. Important stuff. Whether information, whether my beliefs, whether information I hear about is true or false. You're dealing with a damn collusion. And it's so organic. I shouldn't say it's so organic. It is simply organic and it's inescapable. It is a shared monopoly. If you look at man as being the, quote, intellectual consumer, then what you're dealing with, without knowing it, is you're in a situation where you're being misled, you're being manhandled, you're being defrauded. Because you believe, you're made to think that you're in a free marketplace of ideas. Not just in some casual theoretical way, but in a way that is so basic that, as I said, it is at the very foundations of the operations, the purpose, the faith then, your own intellect, such as information. I'm interested in true information, correct information. I do not want false information. All you're saying is, well, I'm too smart. I'm not going to buy from John D. Rockefeller Sr., his oil company. I've heard too many stories. So we have this new one. We have Standard Oil of Pennsylvania. I'm going to stop down the street and buy over there. And it's his son-in-law. In other words, it's him. I am going to pursue correct information. I shouldn't even stoop so low as to say that. And I am going to do whatever method it takes. Maybe I won't fulfill this destiny in this lifetime, but I am going to divine and divide this from false, spurious, specious, fallacious information. I'll buy down the street. You're being manhandled. It is life running a kind of cartel of information. It is idea of price fixing of an almost unimaginable order. And you're wandering around, like, to use my example, if you don't like oil, you go into a grocery store. How about that? There are all kinds of things. But let us say that, well, you got your choice of cereals made by General Mills, made by Kellogg, made by whoever else is in the business now. Procter & Gamble or whoever it is. Wonder Bread, AT&T. But you look there and it seems to be the grocery store, you just got plurality everywhere. You just buy from all kinds of people. What if you found out that it's to the point, which is not that far off, that all of these companies, of all the Wonder Bread, General Mills, Post, and all that, you find if you divided everything in a grocery store, there just seemed to be an almost, more figuratively speaking, an infinite cornucopia of possibilities and choices. But instead just food, think ideas also in a parallel manner. But if you found out that all these companies, that half of everything in there actually ended up being part of the conglomerate of AT&T, another part was a conglomerate of IT&T. That is what you're faced with the human intellect. It is price fixing. It is a cartel. It is at least I suggest to you, it is the most interesting, it is the most staggering conspiracy of all. And no one ever sees it. Because what could be freer than the marketplace of ideas? Because you got so, it's just obviously because you got so many people that got fallacious ideas. And they don't die. We don't arrest them. There's not an information police that runs around arresting people. Look how many idiots and fools you know. I mean, just good basic stuff that you know, like, well, it's good to be an American, it's good to be a Catholic. And you meet somebody that says, I wish I could move to another country, and boy, I think the Pope is just idiocy personified. So there's the proof of the free marketplace that life lets people like that live. That it seems to do the person no harm. They seem to be as healthy, as successful as you are. But my God, look at the absolutely egregiously incorrect information and ideas they have. That's like you condemning, just laughing, just, I would walk before I would put gas in my car from Standard Oil of Ohio from old man Rockefeller. Thank God there's another choice. In other words, thank God that there's another choice from being incorrect and stupid to being correct. Yeah. That just shows humanity. They can dream in all these books about conspiracies, but humanity wouldn't know a conspiracy. You know, if it was a jet engine and they were blind, staggering around drunk on a runway, and they walked into it, they wouldn't know a conspiracy. You know why? Well, you're swimming in it. It's this. As long as there seems to be a dichotomy, as long as there seems to be a claim, even in your own brain, of exclusivity to the truth. That, well, it's obvious. It has to be. Some things are true and some things are not true. And what can you say after that? It's just obviously true. Well, there's one thing you can say. Conspiracy, conspiracy. Finally. Collusion, collusion. It's not a free marketplace. It's a monopoly. It's just a monopoly driven by two components, which is what a collusion is. And we're out of time. Well, we got 10 seconds, I guess. What the hell you want me to say in 10 seconds? What if all this is a conspiracy? You better edit that out. Bye.